Welcome to the Doom Scroll News Report here on Radio Taiwan International, where I, Amanda Stevens, and my co-host,
Hannah Belinsky,
two writers, political by necessity, cover some of the biggest international news stories dominating our news feeds from the last week. I'm Amanda Stevens, and this week we're tackling social media again because the algorithm never sleeps, and neither do we.
That's right.
Although that's probably just because we're doom scrolling with a baby and two insane cats. So
respectively, yes.
Different issues at play here.
Both loud.
Oh, so loud. But for real, some big stuff has been happening in the background and kind of come to a head this week. And we've been kind of putting it off because we have really big feelings and we wanted to be able to discuss it in a measured way.
I still don't know if I can do it, but I'll try.
I know. We're trying out here, guys. So the first thing is the perverts using Grok AI to undress women and children, and thank God the legal action that is taken against them. Then we'll be taking a look at how youths and adults who care for them are striking back at social media companies with a lawsuit in the U.S. against socials for using addictive tactics, and how France is hopping on the youth social media bandwagon. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea to write that out last night when I was writing this script.
No, I get it. It makes sense. Bandwagon.
Really just a word association, I think. Hannah, you actually do have a child. What are your thoughts on children and social media, just broadly speaking?
Well, he's so little, it's...
I don't know if you've really even thought about it yet.
I have, but I also don't know what the internet's going to look like by the time he is old enough to use it.
It kind of sprints.
It does. And it's also already so much different now than it was when we were kids and we were making MySpace pages and Facebook pages.
Do you remember Neopets?
Yes.
That's where all of my friends learned coding.
Zanga. Do you remember this?
I knew the name.
It was just a primitive blogging site. But the thing is, it's not that there wasn't always a dangerous aspect. I mean, it's still online strangers, but now it's the platforms themselves being toxic.
I mean, you can, and we had a little argument about this before. Sure, a lot of these sites, if we just use Neopets or Zanga or AO3.
AO3.
Yeah. A lot of these, you can say that they were addictive, but it wasn't truly addictive, on a psychological level. Beyond
they're not pushing notifications
random games.
To you and stuff.
They don't have access to you when you leave the computer.
Exactly.
So, speaking of harms and social media, let's get to one of the most direct examples of harm that I feel I've ever read.
Yeah, this is extremely harmful. It's hard to overstate.
I will say this could be extremely upsetting for people if you were to go look into what was actually happening. We're going to skip over a lot of we're not going to really discuss the images.
Content warning.
But if you go to look into this, it does pertain to people using Grok AI to generate non-consensual images of nude women in sexualized positions and reports of children as well.
Yep.
Just a heads up to you all. As some of you may have seen, Grok users have been using the AI to digitally undress photos of women and, in some cases, literal children. This is sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Full stop. But in an age of revenge porn where anyone anywhere can create cruel, demeaning, and passable images of anyone else and pass them around the internet before the victim even knows what's happening, that's the form that the sexual harassment is taking. According to NBC, nearly 20,000 images, non-consensual sexualized images, were created just between Christmas and New Year's alone. The same reporting points out that this lines up perfectly with Grok's new spicy mode, which is a feature rolled out with the app's latest image generation update, which exists specifically to produce explicit content, according to a statement from the company. And I double, triple checked that. That's literally what it says. Hannah, can you think of any good reasons to have such a mode on an image generator? And without going into too much detail about the images themselves, how did you even find out about this news?
I mean, there literally is no reason for this.
I couldn't believe that the company themselves said because we want people to be able to generate explicit images.
Why? There's no reason for that to exist. Okay, people do, especially young people, need to learn just how important it is to protect your privacy online. Your name, your location, your image, all of these other sensitive details. But like, this is really beyond the pale. And, they're doing this after people have been online for decades. And like
where this wasn't a threat.
Yes.
Like the thing is like one of the things that makes this so dangerous, one, because like, yes, of course people could always do this, but it's the accessibility argument. It's like by creating a tool that does just this, you've now made what requires like a learned skill to be able to create a deep fake that much easier for somebody. And just in case, to define everything, a deep fake is a fake image of somebody that is passable enough to be real. So it's impossible to tell whether or not it's a real photograph or a real video.
The thing is, before this, there were, perverts. So it's not like this wasn't happening to some extent. But now, like you said, the accessibility of it all is really just overwhelming. Like you could punch in any prompt plus celebrity of your choice's name.
Or God forbid, coworker.
Yes.
Or neighbor.
Right.
Or someone I just saw on social media who I like. Or somebody who I saw on social media whom I hate.
Yeah. As to how I found out about this, I found out from a case where this one young woman on Twitter was being repeatedly harassed with more and more degrading AI-generated images of herself. I think she was 22 years old. Her name was Evie. And she described how it rapidly snowballed into the users, mostly male, of course, asking Grok to depict acts of violence against women, including asking it to generate an image of Renee Good, the woman killed by ICE, with injuries. But it was clearly being used, mostly by men, like I said, to disturb and to provoke.
Harass.
Yes. Yeah. And to make women feel violated, make people feel violated, and generally just to upset people.
Yeah, it's harassment. Now, there is good news in this, which is that California is investigating them. And this one is a little bit old. So there's a lot of like ongoing investigations into this. The great news is that not just the United States, but a lot of people and a lot of countries were very upset. So California's investigating them. They started last week. However, that being said, Musk said he didn't know of literally any images of kids. And his company's official response to NBC when they reached out for comment was just an email that they showed on their program saying, quote, "legacy media lies," end quote.
Great.
Now, thanks for that, I guess. However, it should be noted that Grok, according to the BBC, had a separate reply when it was asked about whether or not the stories were true, that there had been use of the image generator to generate these kind of images. Grok said that there had, including a few which would probably need review. So
thanks, Grok.
Thanks for that. Anyway, they continue to be at odds. But one reason that the story is still relevant is because the EU is now also getting into the action. This story was just released. So the EU is the newest governmental organization to kind of jump in the ring to do some kind of
control
on what's been happening. They're not the only ones, though, as I said, California, but these apps, X itself was even temporarily banned in some countries over this, including the Philippines and Malaysia, following an outcry until the platform claimed that they had installed extra safeguards, according to reporting by Reuters. It should also be said that X did make some changes, though the only change they made is not to delete spicy mode and not even to put guardrails on it, but just to put it behind a paywall. So now spicy mode is only available to people who pay money to use it, whereas before
somehow seems even
it
more
was free. Well, Hannah, how much of a change do you think that these global investigations, so the EU now, although England, I think it's an independent entity, and England also started a review, obviously the Philippines and Malaysia, California, these different global investigations, how likely do you think they are to bring about change, at least as it comes to X?
I don't know, because first of all, Musk has beef with the EU, just like generally.
He did say that this was an attack on all social media companies.
See, exactly.
Or not him, but somebody else said it, and he was like, yes.
The EU has always been trying to regulate his garbage, namely Twitter, X, whatever. It's Twitter and Tesla. So obviously, he is going to try and fight them on this. But I think more importantly, there's really nobody else holding down the fort, because when Musk first acquired Twitter, he gutted their trust and safety advisory group and fired 80% of the company's engineers who were dedicated to content moderation. Yeah, and abuse prevention. So...
Can you tell we've read this story?
Yes. I'm sure he feels obligated to respond in some way, but I have a feeling he's going to be probably deliberately slow on the uptake. And partly because they don't have the manpower to react very quickly or professionally, not to mention his brain is hollowed out by ketamine. But yeah, he's going to drag his feet on this for sure because he is a man-child above all, and he will behave as such.
Not a professional quote, but one I jive with nonetheless. So this is an ongoing story right now. Whether or not this is still being used to generate images, it seems like it is, according to multiple different news sources. And we will probably follow up on this depending on like what we see come out of it. But there's really not too much more that we can say other than that this is like a very cruel and harmful way to use this app.
Nasty.
What I would say is to just remember that if you do discuss this or if you are reading it, there is something to be said for putting the onus on the people who are using it rather than the program. But they are both culpable to some degree, right? A program shouldn't be allowed to do this. All other image generation AIs do have safeguards in place so that you can't do this.
It's just Grok that's the wild card.
So, read at your own discretion. But we're going to go shift gears now into how people are kind of fighting back against social media and especially the youth. All right, so we're back. And while it's not new to try suing social media companies for harm, a new grouping of cases in the United States filed against Meta, Snapchat, TikTok, and Google and their associated social apps is suing these companies for employing addictive habits in the same way that slot machines do, as just one example, and targeting minors as a core demographic to keep them hooked or addicted and to ensure that they remain adult users. So until they become adults and to make sure that they're still hooked as adults. The first of these cases, they're doing jury selection, I think right now, by the time that this episode comes out, which is filed by a now 19-year-old who is only identified by her first three initials. I'm just going to call her the plaintiff. KGM, who says that she started using social media, YouTube, at age 6. And when I would like to note what this probably means is that somebody around her was playing YouTube.
Yeah.
While she was age 6.
6 is so young. You
what 6-year-olds have? She's 19 now. So like back in the mid 2000s, smartphones were still kind of hard to get. I didn't have one.
They were kind of primitive back
then. Computers as well. Right. So anyway. So she started using social media at age 6. Her argument is that a lack of sufficient guardrails and tools, including even just warnings, led to mental health damages, which the suit includes as anxiety, body dysmorphia, self-harm, and a risk of suicide. The lawsuit at its core, the sort of like larger groupings of lawsuits, but this first one especially, is going after the design of these apps. And it seems to be aiming to get the companies to admit that they knowingly designed and employed potentially harmful app features. One thing that people are excited about, I don't know if excited is the right word, but I can't think of anything else, is that the lawsuit will require company bigwigs and CEOs, such as Mark Zuckerberg, somebody from Google, is going to have to come in for questioning, and that company documents on the design will be unsealed for the jury.
I mean, I'm excited.
I am curious to see what is there. There were some like leaked things already, including like conversations between engineers that literally said like, oh, we're basically pushers.
Didn't there used to be a slogan around Google that was like, don't be evil?
And they removed it.
And then they removed it.
Yes.
So like, hello.
They jokingly had don't be evil. It wasn't even a slogan. It was like their company like mission statement.
Yeah.
And they removed it.
So when did we decide being evil was okay? I would like to see the paperwork.
Why would you do that? At least for plausible deniability. Keep it in there.
Seriously.
Anyway. Some of the features mentioned in this lawsuit, which encourage addictive behavior, include infinite scrolling, autoplay videos, and algorithmic targeting. So this is being called a bellwether case, which is a term used to describe cases which sort of test a jury's reaction and determine potential verdicts for greater outcomes, meaning after this, how other courts and kind of the cultural reaction will be to cases like this in the future. So After reading these articles, but pre-trial, because it hasn't happened yet, what do you think potential outcomes of these trials may be? And what are you hoping to see if they're not the same?
I would never get selected for this jury because
I'd be out immediately.
I have so much emotionally invested in this issue. It's impossible for me to think about in objective terms. The pessimist in me says that these tech giants are just too big now to be taken on in any real way. But I should hope that, these qualities you listed, the most blatantly addictive ones like infinite scroll, autoplay, etc. I should hope that this would at least put some controls on that and also slap some age restrictions on social media access, because that seems to be, based on some of the articles we'll discuss forthwith, the better way to manage this, just to simply to age restrict social media access.
Right. I was just going to say, to that point, in this argument and also sort of discussing it, while there's a lot of people who would say that doesn't matter, kids will always get around it. That's true, but even having it out there, this is being compared to a lot of cases in the United States, which brought about changes for cigarettes. There's a lot of importance in establishing someone is knowingly harmful.
Guardrails, same kind of idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
As you were saying, though.
I was just going to say, there's really no good reason for a kid to have social media. There's no good reason for any of us to have social media, but especially not kids who are too young to have impulse control.
And especially, I don't know, we'll discuss the next part and we'll see what you think could be done. Because there are other ways that people are obviously trying to address social media's effects on children, which are being better and better documented by the day, and they're mostly not good. Other countries are dealing with social media on a legislative level as well. This last week, a social media ban passed France's lower house. So if it passes the Senate, where it is headed now, it would ban children under the age of 15 from social media platforms.
Oh, France,
with the idea, ostensibly, looking at the articles about it, being to either lock or deactivate existing accounts for children who are under that age limit, as well as banning smartphones or smartphone use during high school.
Good.
Obviously, they're not going to say you can't have a smartphone, but it looks like you would have to put it in a special safe box.
Put it in the phone jail.
Right.
That's
phone jail. That is what they call it. Yeah. Passing the law would make France the second country globally, I believe, to pass a social media ban, and the first in Europe. We've discussed Australia, at least off air, who launched a similar ban for children under 16 just last year. And while their program launched without a hitch, opinions remain kind of mixed still, with a lot of people believing that more time is necessary to gauge the prolonged effects of such measures. The AFP, writing for The Guardian, lists the biggest disagreement to the bill being arguments of government overreach, with many opponents instead arguing for punishments and regulations for the companies rather than the users, which is how they see this kind of you're not allowed to use it. So what do you think of those counter arguments, Hannah? Do you see these laws as government overreach, or do you have any thoughts on how governments could hold companies more accountable?
I think it simply is easier to control users rather than attempt to control these companies, because just by right of assuming these companies have all the money in the world, therefore access to all the best litigators in the world, I just think it would be simpler to put the onus on the users, honestly. I still want to see some kind of regulation occur, but the court system moves so very slowly.
Well, and then coming up with a system, one of the other arguments within France right now is that they don't have a system to really monitor who is using it. So they would have to also invent a system to do so.
I think companies take advantage of this. It's the same thing with AI. It's developing so quickly, and they would have to write new rules about this that they're trying to move as fast as they can to do everything possible, before rules are made. And here's the thing about social media. I got to get on my soapbox again.
Please.
This 19-year-old girl, this KGM, she's exactly right. Social media is basically a kind of gambling. And I say this because I was once addicted to using Twitter at my peak during the COVID era, when you're
not allowed outside.
There wasn't anything else to do but post, and Musk hadn't ruined this platform yet. So I had several thousand followers basically just from being funny on there.
Yeah.
So I can tell you exactly how that addiction works, and it does function just like a gambling addiction, where every time you post something, you roll the dice, you pull the slot machine lever on the possibility that the post will blow up. And then you get a ton of interaction and a ton of new followers and all the dopamine that comes with that. And often it has nothing to do with the quality of your post. So the rush of posting something, the sense of possibility that comes with that, this is where its power comes from. So would you let a 15-year-old in a casino? No. In fact, you can't enter any Las Vegas casinos until you're 21. I looked this up. And I honestly think that should be the age that you're allowed to use social media. I think it should be treated as like gambling. That's how I
feel that the right solution is kind of somewhere in between. But like I also am drawing from my own experiences, because we were growing up while a lot of these features were implemented.
Right.
And while I wasn't on Twitter, I do remember, we've discussed, I was on Tumblr.
Yeah.
I remember the week that they put in infinite scrolling.
Yeah.
Because I saw, and I remember how much more I immediately felt that I was like stuck on the app, because I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I forget. I was like in my upper teens. Even at that time, I already felt like I spent too much time on the website. After they put in infinite scrolling, it was so much harder to stop myself.
Yep.
Because I know I would go down to the bottom of the page and be like, I've checked for all the new updates.
Same. I remember
because they didn't put in any announcements or anything.
That's the thing.
And I remember something similar for like autoplay videos.
We remember what it used to be like.
It felt easier to quit.
It did feel easier to quit.
So I feel kind of like in the middle, because at the same time, I also was able, like, I do feel like there are some benefits to social media. Sure. And one of the biggest ones that I do see in like people responding to like the Australia ban, for example, is that it does help you to stay connected, especially if you have family or other people who live farther away.
I won't lie. Instagram keeps me connected to like all my college friends. I mean, I'm here in Taiwan.
It's the same.
I don't get to see them, and they're spread out all over the United States.
It's how I contact my family like every single week is through Facebook. So I think that there are some benefits, but I kind of feel like maybe there's like a middle ground here, including like having media awareness and literacy and tech awareness and literacy classes.
That is so important
to kind of teach young kids, because especially like for adults, there is always the argument that like you have a better, more defined sense of like what is good and bad for you.
And you know what?
Kids don't.
I remember being taught media literacy. I remember being taught internet safety. And now I don't know if they teach that anymore, because they assume that kids grow up with it, so they innately know, but that's not the case. It's actually more out of control than ever.
It's like this idea that a digital native also somehow gives you digital street sense, which is not necessarily the same thing, especially if you have never really known that there is an alternative to these things.
And there's a difference even between me and my Gen Z friends. I'm like solidly like kind of, I'm the tail end of millennial, but there's a big difference between me and somebody who is only 6 years younger than me. They don't know how to torrent anything.
Yeah.
They don't know how devices actually work.
I would liken it to, after having been an English teacher, how you pick up a language. You know how to speak it, but you don't know how you know the rules.
Right.
And I think using a lot of these platforms is similar to that. Like, you know how to use them, and you know probably even how to use them like to get what you want out of them. But you may not necessarily know all the ways and like the depth to which they are also using you or preying on your like just kind of instincts in the same way that gambling is.
They're not really thinking about it.
No, and why would you?
And they're not exploring it. And we were kind of looking under the hood, and they don't really have that impulse.
Even when people do look under the hood these days, a lot of these companies are obfuscating or hiding a lot of these information so that it's not immediately evident how they're doing it. So anyway, we're out of time. But we're going to be returning back to these probably as things keep coming back up, because I can't stay away. I'm addicted to news about social media.
Me too.
So anyway, that's all for today's news report. A quick reminder that you can find all of our referenced articles in the show notes for today's episode. I'm Amanda Stevens.
I'm Hannah Belinsky.
And thanks for joining us on air today. Tune in tomorrow for more programs by Radio Taiwan International. And in the meantime, remember to stop scrolling and touch grass. We'll see you next week.